welcome to the Be Smart About Art show. Today is the day that I finally worked out how to make the audio work in the introduction, and the outro should hopefully work as well. So, in this series, this is the 10th segment that we've done. We have been learning as we've been going, and I, as Susan J. Mumford, the founder of Be Smart About Art, have been quite willing to share all of the lessons that I've been learning as we've been going, because the current time in this world really does demand that, well, you've got choices, but if you are somebody who is proceeding with your business, if you're proceeding with your career, that you make some pretty quick decisions and quick actions. So as I've said before, it feels like 3 days is squeezed into one, and yet the weeks are passing really quickly. It's very peculiar. So we set out to create the Be Smart About Art show to run Sunday to Thursday of each week, 15-minute, maybe up to 20-minute segments each time. And essentially we're addressing different topics on different days. And here we are we're on a Tuesday, and the Tuesday segment is all about boosting your art business. Now, something that I know is that I have been bringing in my knowledge from all of my years in the art world, but specifically looking back to the credit crunch and the recession that took place just over a decade ago. Now, this current scenario is not the same. It's much more personally challenging for people. It is arguably much wider spread in terms of it being on a global scale and hitting people just all points, all areas of society. I mean, everything. The UK Prime Minister is currently in the intensive care unit in the hospital. I mean, when it said in the headline yesterday in the UK that clearly this virus does not discriminate, I mean, that couldn't be more true. So here we are going, how do we tackle this? What do we do? How do we take our businesses forward? And what I'm here to address today is something that I have discussed in years since the credit crunch and that recession, something that I've heard from other people as well, which is what expenses that you have now, or that you could even add to your business, that will pay off or could pay off in the long term if you actually do what's needed to help them pay off. I remember I was talking to somebody who I wish I could recall, I don't remember who it was exactly, who a couple of years ago, they were talking about their father. And their father, apparently, throughout his career, he was somebody who essentially, whenever it would hit tough times, let's say the late 70s, the late 80s, early 90s, then late 2008, throughout 2009, etc., that when he was in business, that the one thing that the expense that he would never get rid of was his network, his group. It was some kind of professional organization. I remember at the time, my comparison is that in 2008, I was a member of BNI, Business Networking International. I had joined that organization in 2005 when I was within my first year of having set up my art dealership, my first limited company. There I was, an American abroad in London, and I had daringly set up an art gallery business, which was just insane. So in 2005, I was told by a lady who makes hats, she said, Susan, this milliner, you need to join BNI because you're a nice person and you deserve it. So I went and I joined, and actually I got one of my early collectors from the person who literally sat next to me at the very first ever BNI meeting that I ever attended. Actually, it was my second meeting, I think. And I never even joined that particular chapter, but he became a really great customer. I still remember chatting to him to this day. So when I went through the credit crunch and recession back in 2008 and 2009, it never even dawned on me to give up that membership. Now, in total, what it cost at the time was something like £500. So on current exchange rates, let's call that $650 a year. And then it was actually that again to pay for the breakfasts each month. So those tallied up to maybe £40 a month, something like that. So that's around about £500 again. So again, another $650 or so. The different currencies are going all over the place in the world at the moment. By the way, if you look at prices, oh my gosh, they're insane right now. So what that brings me to is today. and thinking about for you and your enterprise, what current expenses are you looking at where you might be going, this is something that I should get rid of? My big question for you to ask yourself when you're going through, and it's a really, really good idea to go through your bank statements to see what are the costs coming out each month. Do you need to be paying them? Can you justify it? Is it something that's going to pay off in the future? Ask yourself that latter bit. Is this expense something that's going to get me business and to support my business in time to come? So if that's an expense that is going to help you get more money in, don't let it go if you possibly can afford to. Now, clearly, if you're at a point where you have to get rid of absolutely every single cost because you're otherwise not going to be able to pay your rent or whatever it is, depending on what your own government is providing in terms of support, sometimes needs must, and you can rejoin in the future, put things on pause. It was really interesting to receive an email from GoCardless just last week. They're this big payment collecting service around the world, and I first knew about them in the UK probably 4 years ago or so, when I was able to start using GoCardless to enable members of one organization I set up to create direct debits each month. So instead of putting in their credit cards, which as soon as the credit cards expire, then people have to update their details and it gets really annoying for everyone, you instead put in your bank account details. That will not go out of date unless you change your bank account. They've now recently rolled out to the States and I think to Canada and some other countries as well. So it's not GoCardless, is very international. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they started in continental Europe. So GoCardless sent out an email saying, we have really quickly implemented something in our system so that you can pause subscription payments, so that if there's somebody who wants to just temporarily leave, say, a membership or some kind of not, or pause their client status with the company, that the company can say, listen, no problem. How about we pause this for X number of months, at which point we can restart it, we can check in with you beforehand, that kind of thing. So GoCardless sent everyone an email, all their users, including myself, 3 different businesses. I got this email 3 different times, and I was told, okay, so here we are. You can now we have had this user request, so you now have the option to pause these payments and then restart them when your customers are ready to start paying again. When you hear that from GoCardless, you know that the world is in a changing time. And further to that, what else we received actually days later was that it turns out that the GoCardless CTO, pardon me, CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, is actually running a webinar that's on Thursday of this week, and that's for the UK. I'm sure they're doing it different places. Maybe you can join from other countries anyway. The CFO is running a webinar to help people understand how to manage their cash. I mean, these indicators are huge. You would not normally get access to the Chief Financial Officer of GoCardless. You just wouldn't. And so what I'm asking you is, how are you looking at your expenses and what are you doing about them? So if we take my experience back in my gallery days, what did I do? Well, at that point in time, one of the very first things I did was I stopped a series of weekly salon events that we were running each Thursday evening at the gallery. It was really sad to finish them. They'd only been going for a short period. They were proving to be very popular. Each and every Thursday evening, we would combine different platforms within the gallery space, different creative platforms, so people might come in to read prose or poetry. There was one time that Central St. Martin's CSM students in London, they came along and did lots of installation pieces. They literally just installed them that afternoon. We did a big hurrah that evening, and then they took them down, I think, the next morning. It was quite astonishing. We did all different kinds of events on Thursday evening. And so that's one of the first things I cut. I went, okay, that's taking time, that's taking money, it's gone. One of the next things that happened was I realized that it wasn't going to be feasible to keep in the team members who were both part-time at the time. So I spoke with both of them and they both stopped working with the gallery. I laterally ended up taking a 3-day-a-week retail management job myself in order to pay the gallery rent, or to rather not necessarily pay it, but to have the money in the bank account in case I didn't make enough sales. I pivoted the whole business so that essentially I was doing art advisory, I was doing work based on commission. So a client would come to me and say, hey, would you source this work of art for me? Would you have this work of art commissioned? That's the way I was working, not putting on exhibitions and selling pieces from the walls. And actually it worked really, really well for the gallery, for the artists and the gallery alike. And about 6 to 9 months into starting to change that, you could start to see the results. By 2010, we were actually turning a profit on our then business. So we'd gone through a very tough time and we had managed to turn a corner with that. So in terms of when you think about cash in your current position, what you really want to be doing is you want to be thinking about how you're going to survive the current time and maintain commitments as much as you possibly can that are going to bear fruit in the future. And I guess the reason that I wanted to come and address this topic today is to say, get serious about your numbers, go and have a look at what's going out. Also, you want to be thinking, of course, about revenue. We'll be talking about your revenue streams in future editions of the Boost Your Business segment each Tuesday on the Be Smart About Art show, but also to really think about your longer term sustainability as well, because it's too easy to just have a knee-jerk reaction. And what I really love being able to do at this stage in my career is to say, hey, listen, learn this from my experience. And if there's some things that you can manage to go ahead and somehow keep doing them and keep reviewing your situation. This is something that you want to be reviewing probably once a week at the moment, to be going, what are you expecting in the next week? What's happening in 2 weeks' time? What's happening in a month's time? What kind of activities do you have coming? What are you creating to bring in some income as well? How might that offset against some of your costs? And I will just say as well, and this comes from my experience from that period all of those years ago, is that if you get into a situation in which you've got creditors, and those are people who've basically lent your business credit, so you owe them money, speak with them, communicate with them, talk with them as fast as you possibly can. It is the scariest thing in the world, and all you want to do, probably like me back then, would be to hide under your desk or whatever, hide under whatever it is. The best thing to do instead is to reach out and say, hey, my intention is good. Here is my situation. What can we possibly do about this? And to go ahead and start putting in place plans, and you've got to dedicate time to doing this. And I imagine that many of us are in a situation right now in which actually you've been finding yourself over the last 4 to 6 weeks probably going through a period of maybe denial, maybe some shock, maybe some readjustment. I know that in my case, I've had to change loads of things to take place. Instead of being in person, they're taking place online. And that's taken a lot of communication work. Getting the show up and running has certainly taken the Be Smart About Art team time. It's taking myself a lot of learning. And so then when you start to come through that, then you get to a point where you go, right, where is the business? What can I do about this? And communicate, communicate, communicate. I cannot emphasize that enough. And if there's some kind of other value exchange that you can think about, if there's maybe some commitment that you have that you want to keep, but you're not quite sure how you can actually pay cash for it, is there some other value exchange that you could put in place as well as an alternative? Whenever you do a value exchange, I really recommend that you put it into writing and that it's fair for all parties. So if I'm, say, delivering, I don't know, one-to-one service for somebody, because actually in this kind of time, I know some creative professionals going, oh my gosh, I'm not doing my other work as much. I've got more time for my art career. And actually we've got some people coming to us for more one-to-one work, which is really smart. It's quite amazing. So if somebody came to us and said, hey, I want to come to you for one-to-one work, I don't actually have the cash in the bank. So how about, and let's say they offered some kind of service that they thought that we could use. I have no idea what that would be. Then they might say, would you be interested in this service? And therefore we could have a value exchange. And you just make certain that the actual value that you normally charge does actually match up for that. And then you put that into writing. And I would suggest with that you have a regular review if it's something that will be recurring. For example, if it's a one-time project, you sometimes see actually, say, artists getting some framing services because the framer actually wants some works of art, and that would be a one-time project situation. That's all very interesting. And what this all goes to show is that we are thinking about the long term. We are thinking about being sustainable, and we're not being just knee-jerk, okay? So we're getting on top of our businesses, and we're really considering what we need to do. Thank you very much for listening. As ever, I've been Susan J. Mumford. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you to the Be Smart About Art show. Check out the BSAA members community. It's patreon.com/Be Smart About Art. We're currently working towards 100 members, and once we reach that figure, we'll be having one of the one-to-one advisors in our program delivering a monthly, as in they'll take turns, but they'll be giving monthly professional development workshops for the community. So I'm really looking forward to that being part of what you can expect as a member. And we just are so excited to get there. We need to get to 100 members to be sustainable ourselves. So go check us out and keep on watching editions of the Be Smart About Art show. Check out the comments whenever you're watching one of these segments live and request to get notifications on Facebook for when we next go live. Our theme tomorrow, that's going to be Wednesday, is Be Smart About Art question time, in which case members send in their questions, they ask us their questions, and I do my best to answer however many questions I possibly can. And then on Thursday, we have our guest speaker, and that's always somebody who is a specialist in a certain area, and that is followed by the hashtag member masterclass. And that's a 40-minute session in which we take a deep dive based on the subject that we've just addressed in the Be Smart About Art show. As ever, it's been an absolute delight. I appreciate your engagement, and do spread the word. Be sure to follow us at Be Smart About Art, hashtag Be Smart About Art, and I look forward to seeing you again online soon. As we say, we're here to help you thrive in a changing and arguably ever increasing art world. Ciao for now, signing out from Lewis in East Sussex, and here to support you.